When an animal is superficial, it seeks to put attraction above morals. It chases what appears to be floral and forgets that it's mortal. If humans are special, why do we then behave like animals, often betraying our values for capital, and think we act rational? All right, let's do it. So, this is going to be the continuation of my presentation at Liberpulco. This is part two, actually. I just have some bonus content. I didn't this slide, yeah. Have some bonus content I didn't show on the live presentation around 10 days ago on the 7th of September, I think, or 6th. So yeah, almost 2 weeks. Um, yeah, I didn't have enough time, so I just couldn't finish the presentation, or at least I couldn't do the optional stuff, the bonus stuff, right? In case I still have time left, just gonna go ahead with the bonus, or if someone has questions, I would just. In fact, someone had a question, but fortunately we didn't have enough time, so there was just one person having a question. But yeah, gonna have some extra slides here. So this is like the statistic. This is like a Tinder statistic I made for just in case someone is interested. I made for what slide was it? For this slide, right? Because yeah, it's a brutal slide. But I just felt obligated to to also make it a statistic because there are gonna be people who are gonna ask, where you got your numbers from, and this is where I got the number from. Actually, I think I typed it into start from current. I typed it into Brave search, and this is what I came up with. So at the end, if we are optimistic, we're gonna have percentage of 18, like down here, of 18 to 34 years age female on Tinder are that's in the US. Yeah. Between 18 and 34, and optimistic is that 35% of all of those them who are single are on Tinder, right? Which is 8% of all the female population in the US. Whereas if we're pessimistic, it's gonna be 4.65%, right? And this is only Tinder. I didn't even include it Bumble and all the other dating apps, which, in my opinion, in my estimation, it's gonna be around 20 to 30%, right, of all women in the US who are single between aged and 18 and 34 who are going to be on dating apps, right? So it was just important to give this data so so everyone knows, right? So this is also important slide. But yeah, just watch the actual presentation, and you're gonna you're gonna know the details, right? So this slide is brutal, right? It's really brutal. I couldn't present it at the presentation because I went out of time, and I was actually also hesitant to show this slide because it's brutal, right? Because it's the facts, it's truth, and it's scientifically proven. So let's get into it. There is a study that is being called "The Ugly Truth of People Decisions in Speed Dating," right? Ironically, you can actually look it up yourself. Just type it into whatever search engine you use. And so what we can see here is, well, first let's focus on male, right? What you can see here is the light blue, lines are the things the men actually stated they're interested in, right? What they want from a woman. Obviously, attractiveness is number one, as you can see here. Let me actually use my can. Yeah, there you go. Obviously, attractiveness is number one, right? Then after that, we have intelligent. Actually, should be intelligent. Should be somewhat sincere, and from there on, fun a little bit, ambitious, yeah, a little bit, and same interest, not so much as well. But when we then actually take a look at, well, the speed dating event was everyone had like 4 minutes to match with another partner, right? Then they could actually go on second dates and third dates and such. And so who they actually went out with was, on first place, obviously those who were attractive. So it actually matches, right? Here, it matches perfectly. So they say they want an attractive partner, and the reality it was true. It's authentic. However, when it comes to things like fun or ambitious, they were actually going out with more with women who were fun and ambitious than they actually stated, right? So they were kind of insincere when it comes to that. And the same with interest, right? So same interest, shared interest, which is weird, right? Because I have a theory when it comes to ambitiousness, but that's for another topic. It's for another video. So yeah, it's weird how many men say, they want a woman that's submissive, that does all the work at home, but they actually went out with those who are a bit more ambitious. And when it comes to sincerity, that's bad. Yeah, it's really bad. They were not so sincere. But that was a wish of most men here on average, actually, by the way. This is all averages, but most women were not sincere enough, right, for that. Weird, right? But let's not focus on the women, right? Because as you can see here, that's the whatever that's called. That's what women said they want. So the bright pink color is what women said that they want, what they stated. So obviously, a man should be at least somewhat attractive, have some ambitions, should be a little bit fun, you know, should be sincere, and of course should be intelligent. That's what we keep hearing, right? But the reality looks different. It looks very different, right? So as we can see here, who they actually went out the most were the guys who were attractive, right? Not the guys who were intelligent. And number two was just who had this like very similar interest to them, although they stated interest not so important. And surprisingly, ambitious was also not very important. And we also keep hearing, that a man should be ambitious and should have money and should be should be, doing all this, just be rich and successful. But according to this, no. And fun, right? He should be fun. That should be an obvious one. Although it was stated that he's not supposed to be that fun, but it seems like the women went on second and third dates with those who were fun, right? What about intelligence and sincereness? It's just way off, right? So intelligence doesn't really add to to attractiveness or to the sexual market value, however you want to call it. That's how it seems like, according to this study, right? And this is where they tested for 4 minutes, speed dating event, and this is what came out, right? So it's a brutal fact, and I have more brutal statistics. It's gonna come up in the future, but for now, we're gonna have to keep. We're gonna be. We gotta be kind of happy with this, right? For now, yeah, that's how it is. So, and the reason for that is most likely because of hypergamy, right? So, back in ancient times and back in 12,000 years ago, it wasn't really a problem for men to have sex with women. We could just spread our seeds, and it was no real problem. There was no real risk for men to to have sex with multiple women, right? Because we don't really we have no almost no risk involved with it, right? So because of that, men usually lower their standards, as we can see here on the right picture. And I've seen this. I know many guys who are just going out with women who are really not. I personally wouldn't go out with, right? But for women, it's a completely different story because it was very risky for a woman uh, to be with someone who doesn't have the physical attributes because she's gonna bear a child, right? And that child should be able to survive and to have good genes, right? To be tall and have good facial structures and good frame, so it can support itself, right? So it was very important for a woman to have a high standard man or high value man based on how he looks, right? But also status can play a role, of course, but it's just the appearance what mattered the most because they had to survive and they wanted the children to survive, right? So they had to be absolutely sure that the man is good enough, right? And down there we can actually see the thing here, those two pyramids when it comes to hypergamy, right? So as we can see, the bottom 40% of men are not going to have a chance with the bottom 40% of women because of hypergamy, because those are gonna aim up to the middle class guys, whereas the middle class guys are probably not gonna commit to them. They're just gonna have sex with them and then, you know, and obviously those 40% are gonna be rejected here. Like the bottom 40 are gonna be rejected by the lower 20% of women. That's how it usually works. It's I can't say it for everyone. Of course, there are exceptions when it comes to couples. When you see couples with ugly men and good-looking women, but there are many reasons why that could be, right? One would be just that the guy has status and wealth, right? But there are multiple reasons, and this I'm probably going to cover that in another video. So when we get up the ladder, we're gonna have when we look at the top 10%, actually, this should be the top 10% here. This is top 20, if you ask me. So if you look at the top 20%, yes, they're gonna have like sex with the middle class women, but no commitment. And they actually settle with the top 20, like the top 10% of men, usually settle with the top 20% of women, if not the top 10% of women, the most good looking. But then there are going to be also be other factors into play other than appearance, like just status and appearance, skills, how good he is, how good of a kisser he is, how good he's dancing, how good he's able to have sex with her, and other things, right? And also character and charisma, obviously, right? So yeah, I told you it was brutal. So this is how you can recognize how just a short introduction into how you can recognize how attractive someone is just based on his eyes, and that is the canthal tilts. So yeah, if you doesn't matter if you're a man or woman, if you have a positive canthal tilt, this generally is seen as more attractive, whereas neutral tilt is neutral and negative tilt just doesn't look good, right? And just it kind of displays weakness, even though it doesn't really have anything to do with someone being weak. It's just how it appears, right? Just if you look at this guy here, based on his tilts, canthal tilts, right? So when it comes to height, the in the Fortune 500, so the 500 most successful businesses in the US, a CEO average is 59. Like he's 59 years old, average. Whereas 58% of CEOs are 6 foot or over, which is 1 meter 83. But only 9% of 59-year-olds are 6 foot or 1 meter 83 or more. And if you multiply that number, so 58 divided by 9, you get a 6.4 multiplier just by being tall, right? 6 foot or 1 meter 83. And if you compare the couples and how the differences of height, I just keep seeing when I see couples, I just keep seeing men are always taller, right? Not only by a little bit, but by 10 centimeter or up to 20 centimeters, right? And you can see it here in the statistic. So there are barely couples where, what was this? Yeah, this was like was it a survey? I can't remember, but it's a statistic. Um, they actually they even have babies, right? It seems to be around the 2000 area, and the men were always taller, almost always, with 2 to 4% women being taller, right? And hold on, 20%, yeah, it's just inches, centimeters. Yeah, and as you can see, the percentage of like over 20% of couples have a guy that is 15 centimeters taller, just like I said, right? And you can view the statistic for yourself. This is how it what makes a man attractive when it comes to frame, right? So a 1 to 1.6 ratio from waist to shoulder is what's being perceived as attractive for a man. And yeah, this is actually, if you look at models and actors, they have this kind of frame. And this is for women, right? So the waist to hip, right? I have to show this. So the waist to hip ratio. So as you can see, the lower the waist to hip ratio, the the attractive she is. She's being perceived because that shows that she can bring children to the table, right? Whereas the opposite, those with like zero point 0.8, the highest waist to hip ratio, are just not being seen as very attractive. Whereas this one is for most guys attractive, right? This fat ass, because she can bear children, right? And so let's get to the diet keto carnivore perspective of the presentation. So cholesterol is always the bad guy, you know. So it's getting dark here. No, I think, yeah. Hold on. We just turn on the lights. There you go. Yeah. Summer is ending, and so the days get shorter. Okay. So the bad boy cholesterol, you know, we just keep hearing, we should lower our cholesterol because it will cause heart attacks and it will just make us sick, and then at some point we're gonna die, right? But it's never been proven, yeah, that cholesterol is really bad for us. In fact, it's good for us, right? Because we need fat, because our bodies are just made of fat as well. We just need it. Just not visceral fat in the belly or just, the unhealthy fat, but the healthy fat. And as we can see here, there is a study where they basically measured all the mortality and among 12.8 million adults, right? And it just there's no correlation between cholesterol being being the cause of death, right? Even in fact, the most those who die the most out of heart attacks, they have normal levels of cholesterol, not high. So yeah, obviously the devil. Carbohydrates block a hormone called leptin. It's responsible for telling us that we are full. But when carbs get in, a hormone called insulin is produced to bring our blood sugar back down, as high blood sugar is toxic. That in turn blocks leptin, making us constantly hungry. Indeed. Mitochondria, the power cells of our bodies, taking the glucose from carbs, but it's too much. Because of that, it becomes toxic, and our cells try to get rid of it. Our bodies already produce glucose by a process called gluconeogenesis. Fructose is 7 to 11 times more glycating than glucose, right? And so fructose is metabolized differently. It goes to the liver directly and causes fatty liver. And pesticides not only kill millions of insects, right? But they're insects. Like, who cares about it? They're not like cows or dogs or cats who look cute, just look ugly, you know. And if you're aware of the halo and horn effect, you should actually, and if you're not aware, you should be aware of it. So you should actually watch the first part of the presentation at Liberpulco, so you know what it's about. But it's very hard to wash away those pesticides. It's designed to withstand heavy rain. So you're probably not just gonna be able to just wash it away like that, right? And hypoglycemia is when energy levels crash and mood swings is to be expected, right? Let's go to the next slide. Yeah, so there's another study, formation of fructose mediated advanced glycation end products and their roles metabolic and inflammatory diseases. It sounds quite complex, but what it actually is supposed to show us is that fructose just is almost worse than processed sugar because it gets metabolized different by our liver, and so it just ends up our bloodstream and into in our liver, and it gives us fatty liver, right? So there's another study that has been done. And just like I said in the thing, does it, what's wrong with the? Oh, there you go. Okay. Just as I mentioned in the presentation, in the first part, goats have an enzyme in their saliva called tennis, which break down tannins. No, tennis. Okay, maybe the guy made a mistake here, but what it actually does is, when they eat grass, they can actually break it down and turn it into calories. But we humans can't do that, right? But we can eat the sheep and goats and the cows who do that, who can transform the grass into calories, and we just eat them then instead, right? The way we are supposed to eat. And yeah, this is probably the last one. There's been countless studies been done between testing, low carbs diets and calorie restricted diets, low fat, obviously. And the results are always in favor of the low carb diets or the fasting diets. They always lose more fat, right? Yeah, that's it. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something new. I hope the statistics didn't, especially the one statistic, didn't throw you off too much. It's just the truth. It's just reality, right? Based on what I just read and out of my own experience as well, out of studies, out of other people's experiences, just out of common sense, right? And just by realizing that we are not much different when it comes to other animals. When it's based on when it comes to attraction, but also we just have our specific diets we have to follow. We can't really have a balanced diet with some meat and some fruits and some veggies and some honey and some other stuff. We we just we have we are a species and we have to follow a species appropriate diet. If we don't, we get sick. And look around you, right? So yeah, that's it for the video. See you the next time. If you want to be a nice person, like and subscribe, and be ready for more.